Me. So this is week 2 of what I'm hoping is going to be an 8-week series where every week we're going to talk about something that's really universal to everyone who's setting out on this process of divorce. You know, this journey of transformation is really what it is. And last week we talked about how you can trust your decision. You feel like you need a divorce, but you're just not sure. So we talked about that last week, and that is posted still on my page at Family Transitions, and it's also on YouTube. If you go in and search Regina DeAngelis, you will find that video there. So if you want to share it or rewatch to get caught up, please do that. And so tonight we're talking about what happens next. Okay, so you've made this hard decision to get divorced, which is never easy. And often, I think the more common or normal thing that people do is that they both run out and hire attorneys then. They go into self-defense mode and they kind of lock everything down. They go hire 2 attorneys, and before they know it, they are embroiled in a process that is much more antagonistic than they envisioned. The attorney is going to advise you, in many cases, and I don't know, you'd have to talk to attorneys in your state, and they all have different styles, but I think the normal course is that, you're going to file what's called the divorce complaint, or you're going to start the process. But that is a legal process. And what I tell my clients is, you know what, if you've made the decision to divorce, just kind of hold your horses. Everybody needs to step back, take a breath, because it's completely overwhelming. And the most important thing to do is to breathe and sort of get some coaching, either through a therapist or someone like myself who can help you really focus on what needs to be your first priority. The thing about going out and starting a legal process that people don't expect or necessarily understand is that if you go into the court system and you start a divorce, you are actually starting a lawsuit. And when your attorney, or even if you do it yourself, when you create those forms, it's going to list you as the plaintiff and your spouse as the defendant. And so you go from being a family one day to adversaries in a lawsuit with a plaintiff and a defendant the next day. And I can't really imagine anything that's further away from getting us started down a road of amicable family transition than saying to your spouse, here's your divorce paperwork, and it says across the top real big, you have been sued in court. You may lose your rights too, and it lists all of these things that now are in jeopardy because you've decided to get a divorce. So I always tell my clients to hold their horses and let's step back and really focus. Okay, so nothing needs to happen immediately when you've decided to get divorced. And that, I think, is something that people do not expect. They think they need to go out and get this process started. They need to protect themselves. As long as your spouse and yourself are going to move forward with integrity and, yes, emotional intelligence, which requires you to be somewhat caring and compassionate for the position that the other person is in, especially like I talked about last week, where if one person is really driving this and the other person hasn't had time to catch up emotionally to the idea that this family is going to look different, that is a gut-wrenching realization for the other party. And like I mentioned last week, the person who is moving forward and saying, I want this divorce, they are in a place where they've already done some of the critical grieving that will allow them to kind of be more clear-headed as they move forward. So you really want to make sure that you're giving the other person time to catch up emotionally. So, the most important thing is to not get overwhelmed, to slow down. Then once you've had time to process, you can really focus on, what do I need to think about first? when you go to get divorced, it raises so many issues. It really is a complete life transformation from your financial picture, a lot of times your housing situation. It could even involve changes to where your kids go to school, certainly to where they're sleeping. All of that at one time is too much. The healthiest way to get through a divorce is to take it really one step at a time and take it cautiously. So my clients go through a very deliberate process where we sit down and we really analyze their fears first and think about, okay, this is going to be a big change, obviously, that goes without saying. What is the most terrifying about this for you? And once we narrow down what that is, we take concrete steps to really give them back control. So you have to identify the problem, and then just like with a school paper, to put this in, less scary terms, if you have a huge project at school, the best technique to tackle that is literally by breaking it down into small chunks. So you pick your topic and you're good. If you're doing a term paper, then you're going to do your research and you're going to categorize your research, doing it in small chunks. That is science-based educational practice, and it's just good practice when it comes to anything in your life that